Assemblywoman Claire Valdez is running for Congress with the support of the Democratic Socialists of America and its poster boy, Mayor Mamdani. So my question to you is this: do endorsements matter in this race?
I think they do matter in this race. This is a district that, voted overwhelmingly for Mayor Mamdani in last year's election, and he and I come out of the same movement. We both have, both Democratic Socialists have both been building within NY-7 and all around New York City. And, what we saw last year is that there's a broad constituency for the kind of platform that we're putting forward. And he's an incredibly important validator in a district where he is just overwhelmingly popular and really beloved by our constituents.
So this is really a contest between progressives and the Democratic Socialists of America. So I'm wondering, given the fact that there's a difference, what is your vision for what you want to do for New York when you get to Washington, and also what you want to do when you're in Washington?
There's a lot of things that we need to do. The reason that I'm running in this race is because I really believe workers deserve it all. And I really believe that working people are capable of organizing their own lives to win those things. I come out of the labor movement. For me, the most important thing is how do we get as many people as possible into unions so they can fight for the things that they deserve? How do we make housing truly and deeply affordable? I think that the federal government has a real role to play in making sure our NYCHA is made whole and in building social housing around New York. And that we have real models that have existed here in New York City and all over the world that we can look to. And of course, we are spending billions and billions of dollars right now on an illegal war, on upholding a genocide in Gaza. And that money should really be in our communities, making sure that we have education and healthcare and the things that actually keep people safe and make our lives dignified.
I know you come out of the labor movement, but there are many people who think that the labor movement needs strengthening.
Absolutely.
That, it's fallen on, I don't want to say hard times, but a lack of respect. So the question is, what would you do to strengthen the labor movement so that there's more respect in power, centers of power in government, to not only Washington, but here in New York?
Yeah, and I think you're right that the labor movement has been under attack for decades now. We've seen union density fall across the entire country. New York really is a hot, a point of hope. There's so many union members here, but public sector workers are under attack all over the country. It is incredibly hard to organize your workplace. And so, passing something like the PRO Act, the Protect the Right to Organize Act, I think is probably the best way, immediate way to increase union density, make sure that right to work laws are abolished across the country, do ABC testing so that independent contractors who right now are treated like they're not real employees are and afforded the right to organize. And we need to use every tool in the toolbox. The federal government right now acts like it is it's sitting on the sidelines in a lot of these fights. I think we can be really proactive. My platform includes a federal fund to help new organizing. I think we have a real role to play in proactively helping workers who are up against a lot, up against really entrenched corporate power. So we can take their side in these fights and help them organize, give them some resources, connect them with unions. And I just think it's really essential, not just because unions build a path toward dignified life and good wages, but because they build democracy. When union density is at its highest, democratic engagement is at its highest. And it's just a really important piece of American life that, has been under attack for far too long.
So why are you a better choice to succeed Nydia Velázquez?
I come out of the labor movement, like I said. I think it's a really important perspective to have right now when, we're saying union density in the country is really low. In Congress, it's really, really low. There are very few members of Congress who have been in labor unions, who have been bargaining committee members. Those are experiences that I have as a working person. I think that's a really important voice right now when the labor movement is under attack. And I'll say, too, I have been really out in front talking about the genocide in Gaza since the early days. And I think it's really important, I think, that our elected representatives aren't kind of waiting to see which way the political winds are blowing.
So if you were in Washington, would you vote for money for Israel's defense?
No, I wouldn't.
Either offense or defense, no money for weapons?
No money, no.
What about Iron Dome?
No, I wouldn't support Iron Dome funding as long as Israel is engaging in, open war crimes and flouting international law. I think we have a responsibility to uphold international law in the United States, and we shouldn't be supporting it when countries are violating it.
Would you march in the Israeli Day Parade?
No, I won't. I won't be marching in this.
How do you feel about the fact that the mayor has decided not to do it, given the fact that a lot of people in the Jewish community see it as something that perpetuates the rising amount of anti-Semitism, which exists in Brooklyn, in the district that you represent?
I don't want to be, I absolutely agree. I think anti-Semitism exists, and it's a scourge in our communities that needs to be stamped out. I'm glad that the mayor is really focused on making sure that he's supporting anti-hate provisions and really funding those provisions in the New York City budget, and is fighting to make sure that New York remains a place that's welcoming for everyone.
His failure to march sends a bad message to the Jewish community?
I think his real investments are the things that people should be looking at. He's spending millions and millions of dollars battling anti-Semitism, and I know that's where his commitments are.
Let's talk about housing. I know it's something that you care a lot about. Yeah. I wonder how you feel about the fact that, do you think that wealthy neighborhoods should be forced to have build affordable housing?
Absolutely. I mean, we're in the midst of a housing crisis. It's really serious, and so I think we need to be talking about where we can be building affordable and deeply affordable housing all over the city, and where there are places that have not been doing that. I think we need to look at those neighborhoods and asking them to help out. Yeah. You also support something called decommodified housing. Mm-hmm. That means you want to spend more money on NYCHA and things like that. What's the reality of that ever happening, given the fact that the Republicans in Washington haven't felt the need to do that? We need to be kind of clear-eyed, I think, about the next couple of years and really be fighting for as much funding for NYCHA as we possibly can. NYCHA, like so many other public entitlements, have been under attack, just like the labor movement, for decades and decades by the right wing that wants to see government fail. I really believe that government has a real positive role to play in people's lives, and NYCHA is one example of where that should, NYCHA should be beautiful, it should be welcoming, and we've seen such disinvestment that we're in this massive billions and billions of dollar hole. But we should be fighting for that. We should be fighting to make sure that elevators work, that there's no mold and infestations, and again, that this is beautiful housing. It should be the crown jewel of New York City. And we should be building more. We need to repeal the Faircloth Amendment. We need to be building social housing, and standing up against a real estate industry that has made billions and billions of dollars off of our need for safe and stable housing. And the federal government should be leading in that fight. So I know you voted against the state budget. We only have about a minute left. We have to keep it tight. But Antonio Reynoso says he would have voted for it. So you disagree on that. Why did you vote against it? I voted against one piece of the budget. I voted against the revenue bill. So the New York State budget is broken up into multiple bills. So I voted against the revenue budget.
But that's the money that was going to come to New York City.
And it was a hard decision to make because there's some good stuff in there. The pied-à-terre tax that many people organized for, came to Albany, rallied in New York City, organized their neighbors for, and that's certainly a victory. But at a moment when 450,000 New Yorkers are about to lose their health care, many thousands will lose their SNAP benefits, we could have been doing so much more in this moment to make sure that the billionaires in New York State who are getting a $12 billion tax cut this year alone are paying their fair share and that we're making our city whole.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it right there for now. But our conversations continue right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York. We are back with Assemblywoman Claire Valdez. Just one question. What is socialized housing?
Sure. So social housing is kind of the broadest umbrella when we talk about decommodified housing. But in short, it's housing that is democratically controlled by the people who live in it, that's protected from kind of market forces, and that's managed by either not-for-profits or by the government.
Is that like a co-op?
It could be like a co-op. So it could be NYCHA. It could be versions of Michelama. It's just the broadest umbrella to talk about housing that's protected from the market forces that drive so many of our.
But housing. Some of your opponents would argue that sometimes having people run their own housing isn't the most effective way to do it because people hesitate to ask their friends to pay rent and other things like that. Do you subscribe to that, or do you think it's a specious argument?
I think it's a specious argument. There are models for social housing all over the world, and really even here in New York City too. Michelama housing, NYCHA. There's things we can look to that show that having housing that's not managed just by a private management firm or by a private landlord can succeed, and that people can live in it for the long haul and really put down roots, build community there. And it's a model I want to see here in New York City, where real estate industry really has a stranglehold on our housing.
So immigration is another problem. I wonder, New York City has had a huge influx of immigrants. What mistake, if any, did city officials make in handling the crisis?
I think the mistake that I think we often make when we talk about this is that we don't have enough resources to handle these things. I think that's exactly wrong. This is one of the wealthiest cities in the United States, one of the wealthiest countries that history has ever known. We absolutely have the resources to make sure that people who come here seeking a better life, escaping violence or environmental degradation, can build lives here, and we should be welcoming them. And, for too long, I think Democrats have taken right-wing talking points about scarcity and austerity, when we should be talking about how are we making sure that people who come here can work, can find stable housing, their kids can go to school, they feel welcomed. That's the story of New York City, and I think it's what makes us really strong.
You get into a philosophical discussion of how much money the city budget has, and even though the state bailed out New York City to the tune of $8 or $9 billion, the question becomes, where do you spend the money? And if you have people, do you spend it on immigrants? Do you spend it on people living here? Do you spend it on people who are losing their health care? It's not like there's an infinite amount of money. We don't have a printing plant. So how do you make the decision where the money goes?
When we talk about, the limited budget, I think we need to be talking about the people who are at the most risk. And, immigrants do live here. And I don't think that treating our new immigrant neighbors as separate from the people who have built their lives here over generations is an acceptable position. Everyone needs health care, everyone needs stable housing, everyone needs public education, and good paying union jobs. And I think when we stop trying to pit people against each other, we see how much power we have to organize for the things that we deserve. And, back to the New York State budget, the pied-à-terre tax that's included in the state budget is a win. It's not as much as we had hoped to win, but, that piece would not have been included if it hadn't been for thousands of New Yorkers coming together, organizing, talking to their neighbors, coming up to Albany, rallying in their home cities to demand it. And so it's a real victory at a moment when, Governor Hochul said, I'm not including any taxes in this new taxes in this budget. We were able to win that. And when we organize, I think we can we can win the resources that we need, so we don't have to be trying to pit people against each other. This is not a poor city. We have plenty of resources right here. So
if you got elected to Congress, what would your first bill be?
So many decisions. I'm really excited about the PRO Act. The Protect the Right to Organize Act would do so much to build union density in the United States. And I think we need to go beyond the PRO Act, too. I mentioned the Federal Fund for New Organizing. I think the federal government should be going after companies that are slow-walking unions or doing union busting. We should be denying federal contractors to federal contracts to companies that are doing union busting, and really standing on the side of workers in this moment. I think there's a lot that the federal government can do to build the labor movement and make sure that people can organize in their workplace. So if the Democrats take control of the House, would you vote for Hakeem Jeffries to be the Speaker? I'm not prepared to say that I'd vote for him yet. I think I would. First of all, I think we need to get to a position where we are voting for the majority leader, and I hope that we'll be in that position in 2027. But I also have been disappointed in a lot of the decisions Hakeem Jeffries has made, and the way that he has, not committed to not funding the war in Iran. And I think, NY-7 is a district that's felt a lot of dissatisfaction with his leadership, and I'd want this to be a broader conversation. Not to change topics, but would you endorse Kathy Hochul for re-election? Kathy Hochul has not asked for my endorsement, and she withheld my paycheck for 2 months. So that's a state law, just for the record. Yeah. For those who don't know, while the state budget is late, legislators aren't paid. I think we need to tell our viewers that there's a state law that says that if there's no budget on time, which the budget is due on April 1st, that lawmakers don't get paid until they agree to a budget. Correct. Yep. So, but you blame her. Well, I mean, it was, I think it was the governors, including, a bunch of legislative priorities, her own legislative priorities in the budget that made this budget so late. Instead of talking about, the resources that our communities really need, we got caught up in talking about all kinds of other things that were not real priorities, certainly not for my district. And it's a real problem. I mean, the budget process is broken in New York State. It's certainly something that I think we need to contend with at the state level.
So I read in your biography that you worked at Trader Joe's. I wonder how long you worked there and what you learned from the experience.
I worked at Trader Joe's for 6 years as a part-time worker, full-time worker. I did nights, I did weekends, I did early mornings. It's incredibly hard work. It's really, you're on your feet for 8 hours a day. You're lifting heavy boxes. You're going in and out of freezers and coolers. You're dealing with customers who are mad that their favorite product is out on the shelf. And Trader Joe's workers deserve a lot of respect, and they deserve a union. And Trader Joe's has been honestly union busting around the country when workers have come together to try to organize their workplaces. And I think, I stand with those workers who are doing that because I know exactly how hard that job is.
So I wonder what skill or talent you think that you have that would make you best suited to be a congressperson.
I'm an organizer. In my union at Columbia University, I worked with coworkers who were, call center workers, administrative assistants, print shop workers, and we would come together to fight for the contracts that we deserved. I got to stand shoulder to shoulder with my coworkers during grievance meetings and disciplinary hearings, really difficult moments in their lives, and help support them to take control over their investigations, do their own work on that, and speak in those meetings. And I think it's really important at a moment when, to me, like one Congress member can't do everything by themselves. We need people who will go there, who will organize not just within the halls of Congress, but with the movements that won them that seat in the first place. And that's something that I've done in the Assembly, and that I'll continue to do if I go to Congress.
But the problem, I think, is that right now there's such division in Washington. It seems like it's hard to bring people together. I mean, the House has a common sense caucus, but not everybody belongs in it. I mean, and there seems to be many shades of Democrats. So how do you bring people together?
You start by finding the things that we have in common and the common needs of our districts. Something I was thinking about the other day is, New York 7 has, I think, the third most lead pipes of any district in New York State. That's a concern that I share with, colleagues that represent Michigan, colleagues that represent rural districts. That's something that we can fight together on, to do replacements, to fight for more funding. That's an issue that crosses party lines, ideological lines. So I think identifying the places where we have common cause and really focusing on those. And we build trust that way too, when we show up for each other on our fights. That's how we build trust. And we build from there, and we go from there.
What's one thing that people might not know about you that you want your constituents to know?
I think, I came to New York to be an artist. I wanted to be a painter.
Really?
Yeah. I moved here to work at a museum in Long Island City, but also to pursue life as an artist. And like many people who made that decision, I encountered high rents, bad bosses, long hours, and had to give it up. Ended up working at Columbia University because it paid a living wage and gave me time off. But it's something that's really, I think New York 7 has more artists than almost any other district in the country.
Do you still paint, for your own?
I wish. No, I don't.
No time?
I don't have time anymore. But, for me, organizing really filled the space that art used to fill for me. It's about creativity and collaboration and problem solving. And so I threw myself into organizing instead.
So what's one thing your mom or parent used to bug you about when you were a kid?
Folding my laundry.
You didn't fold your laundry?
No, I never folded my laundry. I do now. I'm very on top of it now, but that's because I was made to.
When was the last time that you wore a costume, and what did you dress as?
It was last Halloween. I dressed up as Kiki from Kiki's Delivery Service, if anyone knows that cartoon.
What's the last TV or streaming show you watched?
Ooh, I'm watching ER right now because I watched The Pit, and really want to see where Noah Wiley got his start. I really appreciate that he has been so out in front of on labor issues and talking about, SAG-AFTRA and the need for union protections for actors and for the nurses they portray.
And what's your most memorable birthday?
Ooh, I think actually a couple of years ago, I had really given up on the idea of having a big birthday party and just wanted to hang out with some friends. And we did it up right. We went and got some martinis and then went and got some tiramisu, and
sounds great.
It was perfect. And I think sometimes we get caught up in the need for a big celebration, and what you really need are the core people in your life to celebrate with. And
tiramisu.
And tiramisu, doesn't hurt.
So what's the last time you admitted being wrong?
I didn't think that Zohran Mamdani was going to win the mayor's race.
You didn't?
I had my doubts, but
seriously?
Yeah, but I came to his campaign launch when he first started because I believed in our movement. I believed that there was something in the ether, and to the mayor's credit, he spent a lot of time talking to me and really organizing me and sharing his vision with me. And, I was really proud to endorse him and support at the end of the day, because I could see that we had something we could really build together. And I was wrong. I was wrong about the first thing, right about the second part.
What's your least favorite vegetable?
I'm a vegetarian, so I kind of like all vegetables.
Good for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then what's your favorite vegetable?
Oh no, I love a snap pea. You know what? I'll say my least favorite vegetable is a beet. I'm learning to like them.
You don't like beets?
I'm learning to like them.
Oh my God, I had beets for breakfast this morning.
Oh yeah?
I ate a lot of vegetables too. So what do you think people first notice about you that leaves an impression?
I think they appreciate that I'm just a regular person, that I'm very down to earth, that I'm grounded. I didn't come to politics through electoral ambition. This isn't something that I ever saw myself doing, and I think they recognize something in that is that's familiar. Just that I'm a regular person, that I'm very grounded.
Last question: do you have a go-to karaoke song?
Oh, goodness. You have to kind of read the room. This is my thing about karaoke. You have to kind of see where people are at and make some decisions. My last karaoke song was a Shania Twain song, and a real miss. But, sometimes you got to try it out, and you win and you don't.
Okay. Well, Claire Valdez, Assemblywoman Claire Valdez, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you at home for joining us as well.